An earthquake of magnitude 5.6 has struck near the Japanese city of Fukushima in the northeast of the country. The nearby nuclear plant is not said to have been affected. The quake's epicenter was some 50 kilometers below the surface. I wasn't at home, so I was quite surprised, but a store clerk guided us, so there wasn't any panicking. Fukushima was one of the most badly affected areas in the March the 11th, 2011 earthquake, which caused the worst catastrophe in a nearby nuclear power plant since the Chernobyl accident in Ukraine in 1986. The tremor nearly 6 years ago was followed by a devastating tsunami wave, which left thousands dead or missing.
Tuesday night, very rough time in Illinois. Several reports of tornadoes, some deadly, certainly extensive damage being reported across Illinois. There's also a report of a tornado across eastern Iowa. But it wasn't just tornadoes causing damage. Significant hail, hundreds of hail reports, hundreds of wind damage reports continuing to pour in. And remember, this threat continues as we go overnight into Wednesday.
The National Weather Service announced that one person was killed when a tornado raked through northern Illinois on Tuesday. The town of Ottawa, just southwest of Chicago, was struck by a storm. Power outages and heavy damage to buildings were reported by the LaSalle News Tribune, and minor injuries were reported in a nearby village. The storm also pounded the area with golf ball-sized hail. Governor Bruce Rauner was active at that state's Emergency Operations Center. February tornadoes are considered a rarity in Illinois.
Finally, potheads can lift something other than the remote. A pot-friendly gym is set to open in San Francisco, where people will be encouraged to get high while working out. It's called Power Plant Fitness. Marijuana entrepreneur Jim McAlpin is opening it with help from former NFL running back Ricky Williams. Customers will be able to both smoke weed at the gym as well as purchase it. There's a few other differences compared to a normal gym. The steam room will be replaced with a hot box. The water fountains will pump Mountain Dew, and the treadmills will never be used. McAlpin says, quote, if you use it right, cannabis takes the things you love and lets you love them more. With fitness that can help you get into the zone, into the eye of the tiger mode. Wow, that's pretty intense.
German cities held their annual Rose Monday float parades, with many mocking U.S. President Donald Trump, Brexit, and European populist leaders. From Cologne to Dusseldorf, the major theme of the float parades this year was U.S. President Trump, whom they depicted performing sex acts with the Statue of Liberty and being decapitated by a guillotine. Another float in the parade showed the Statue of Liberty holding the severed head of the president. The float was likely referencing the controversial cover of German magazine Der Spiegel, in which Trump was portrayed cutting off the head of the statue in an Islamic State-style execution. Trump was joined by Front National French leader Marine Le Pen and Dutch firebrand leader Geert Wilders in a float that compared the trio to a blonde Adolf Hitler.
One of the funniest things to me about the effect Donald Trump is having on our culture is how suddenly all of our corporations are acting like they're responsible and like they care about the environment and workers and humanity all of a sudden. Our corporations are now suddenly the voice of caring responsibility. Take, for example, Starbucks. Immediately after Trump announced the travel ban, Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz issued a big statement saying the company would hire 10,000 refugees worldwide over the next 5 years. He talked about the conscience of our country and the American dream. Starbucks did this. Starbucks, the giant coffee corporation who systematically erased thousands of local coffee shops run by immigrants and individual Americans from my city of New York. Starbucks suddenly went from giant corporation gobbling up the world's coffee businesses to the voice of our conscience. That's funny enough. But then even funnier was how all these idiots started taking pictures of themselves holding Starbucks cups and posting them on the internet to show their support of Starbucks. They actually felt self-righteous about buying coffee from a giant corporation. They actually felt like they were helping the little people by buying coffee from a giant chain. And of course the media played it up, saying this was another case of people coming together against Trump by buying up Starbucks like crazy. This is how twisted this stuff gets. It's so funny. But then even funnier is that now, about a month after their big announcement to hire refugees, Starbucks consumer perception levels have fallen by a whopping 2/3, according to YouGov Brand Index. The perception tracker measures how people feel about a brand, and they measured Starbucks after the announcement, and it had fallen drastically from when they tracked the brand's perception back in October, by about 2/3. In other words, even though the media showed lots of pictures of people supporting Starbucks, the reality seems to be much different. And the reality is, there's reason to believe the backlash will impact Starbucks' bottom line, according to YouGov.
That chicken sandwich you bought for a quick lunch might not be all chicken. Researchers in Canada DNA tested grilled chicken from 5 different fast food restaurants: McDonald's, Wendy's, A&W, Tim Hortons, and Subway. None of the samples tested were made of 100% chicken DNA, but it's important to note, once chicken is seasoned and processed, it's not expected to hit that perfect percentage. Most hovered around the mid-80s, which is apparently a pretty standard percentage for fast food. But one sample came back with slightly troubling results. Subway strips only had about 50% chicken DNA. So what makes up the chicken if it's not, chicken? In most cases, the meat is filled out with soy. Soy is cheaper than meat, which could be why it's in so many food products. Subway Canada said it can't verify the study's results, but claimed its chicken shouldn't be over 1% soy. The company said it will look into its suppliers' meat quality standards.
The French President François Hollande, in one of his final acts as leader, inaugurated a new stretch of high-speed railway on Tuesday. The most unpopular president since World War II. Hollande is not standing again and has been dogged by mishap for the last 5 years, and even now there's no end to it. His press conference was interrupted by gunfire.
No one likes to screw up at their job, but in some positions the consequences are a lot more severe than others. That became obvious when a sniper who was protecting French President Francois Hollande reportedly fired his gun by accident after he tripped while on lookout on a roof. Hollande seemed totally unfazed by the gunshot, saying, quote, "I hope it's nothing serious," before continuing with the speech. The misfire reportedly injured 2 people. The bullet went through a waiter's leg and also hit another man, but their injuries aren't considered serious.
German-Turkish relations are becoming increasingly strained over the arrest of a Die Welt reporter in Istanbul, with Berlin summoning Ankara's ambassador in protest. Politicians and journalists have also been demonstrating outside the Turkish embassy, calling for the release of Deniz Yücel.
Deniz Yücel of Germany's prominent Die Welt newspaper was arrested pending trial on Monday after he reported on emails purportedly hacked from Turkey's energy minister, the son-in-law of President Tayyip Erdogan. It's drawn rare and sharp criticism from Berlin, a security partner that's also dependent on Erdogan to stop the tide of illegal immigration into inner Europe. Now German Chancellor Angela Merkel's called Yücel's arrest disproportionate and bitter and disappointing. Yücel is the first German reporter to be held in a massive crackdown following July's failed coup attempt. Tens of thousands have been arrested, including many members of the media, what Turkey has said is a necessity in the face of security threats both foreign and domestic. But it's also driven Turkey further apart from its traditional allies, including fellow NATO members like Germany, who rely on Turkey in their fight against Islamic State.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan says after finishing their job in the Syrian city of Al-Bab, Ankara-backed militants will advance towards the city of Manbij in Aleppo province.
As determined as before, the next step is Manbij. Manbij belongs to Arabs. It does not belong to PYD or YPG. We relate this to our American friends. PYD and YPG must definitely move to the east of Euphrates. We told Americans the Kurdish militias must not stay there. Americans always reply they have withdrawn or they are withdrawing, but they haven't withdrawn yet.
President Erdogan also indirectly accused the U.S. of not being serious in its fight against Daesh. He noted that Turkey is ready to help the U.S.-led coalition to push Daesh out of its de facto capital, Raqqa, if Washington is willing to do so. According to Erdogan, Turkey has no plan to stay in Syria once its goals are achieved and the mission is completed. The Turkish president also categorically rejected any cooperation with the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces. The SDF includes Arab and Kurdish YPG fighters, which Ankara sees as a terrorist group. Damascus has repeatedly protested Turkey's military activities on its soil as a breach of international law.
Now beginning with Russia and China having vetoed a UN Security Council resolution drafted by Western countries aimed at imposing new sanctions on Syria over alleged use of chemical weapons.
Those against.
Russia and China made an outrageous and indefensible choice today. They refused to hold Bashar al-Assad's regime accountable for the use of chemical weapons. They turned away from defenseless men, women, and children who died gasping for breath when Assad's forces dropped their poisonous gas.
Что касается санкций, то я думаю, что сейчас это совершенно неуместно в отношении сирийского руководства, потому что это не помогло бы переговорному процессу, а только мешало бы или подрывало бы доверие в ходе этого переговорного процесса. Россия никаких новых санкций в отношении Сирии поддерживать не будет.
Russia says relations with the United States are at the lowest point since the Cold War. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov says the ties deteriorated before the Ukrainian crisis under the administration of the former U.S. President Barack Obama. Ryabkov believes that Donald Trump's presidency began amid prevailing anti-Russia sentiments, with opponents of Trump inflaming Russophobia to discredit him. The deputy added that his country would analyze signals and approaches stemming from an upcoming Trump address to Congress. He also said that Moscow has not asked Washington to lift sanctions against Russia. However, he noted that without sanctions, it would be easier to work with the U.S. on the Syrian crisis.
The Associated Press reported on Tuesday that President Trump will issue a new immigration order that will remove Iraq from the list of countries whose citizens face a ban on travel to the United States. Citing 4 unnamed U.S. officials, the AP says the decision follows pressure from the Pentagon and State Department, who urged the White House to reconsider Iraq's inclusion in the original ban. Officials added that Iraq plays a key role in fighting the Islamic State group. President Trump is expected to sign the new order on Wednesday.
tensions are rising again between Israel and the Hamas leaders of the Gaza Strip after the Jewish state's retaliation to a rocket from the coastal enclave. Yesterday, the Air Force attacked 5 Hamas bases in the Gaza Strip hours after a rocket was fired from the Palestinian territory into southern Israel. The missile landed in an open area on Monday, failing to cause any Israeli casualties. Palestinian sources say at least 4 people were wounded in the Israeli strikes. The terror group's spokesman released a statement warning Israel not to target what he refers to as Hamas's resistance positions.
عند تدهور الأوضاع في قطاع غزة تفجيرها مع المقاومة الفلسطينية هي حكومة الاحتلال الإسرائيلي التي يجب أن تتوقف عن ارتكاب أي حماقات جديدة بحق أهلنا في القطاع.
There's been no immediate claim of responsibility for the rocket attack from the Gaza Strip, but Israel's long made it clear that it holds Hamas accountable for all terrorism emanating from its territory.
אין לנו שום רצון, שום כוונה ליזום שום מהלך צבאי ברצועת עזה. אבל גם אין לנו שום כוונה לספוג טפטופים. אנחנו לא ניכנס לפינג פונג של ירי וירי כנגד. ואני מציע לחמאס לקחת אחריות, לעשות סדר ולהירגע.
The last large-scale conflict between the two sides took place in 2014. Since then, Hamas has observed a de facto ceasefire with Israel, although small armed cells of Islamic terrorists have been launching close to 2 rockets a month at the Jewish state.
On Monday, Facebook closed down the official account of Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah party. The closure comes as a result of an ongoing Facebook campaign to block accounts that promote violence. Fatah spokesman Munir Jagoub told the Jerusalem Post that he believes Facebook closed the account because of a historic photo of former Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat holding a rifle next to Fatah vice chairman Mahmoud al-Alul. However, last August a Fatah account bragged that the group had killed over 11,000 Israelis. Current Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has consistently discouraged violence publicly in English media outlets and ordered Palestinian security forces to preemptively arrest Palestinians for carrying out attacks against Israelis. In Arabic, however, he's been quoted inciting to violence multiple times, most notably of which was when he said with respect to protecting the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, quote, "We welcome every drop of blood spilled in Jerusalem. This is pure, clean blood on its way to Allah," end quote. According to PA General Intelligence Chief Majid Faraj, PA security forces have prevented more than 200 attacks against Israelis. Facebook has not commented publicly on the closure of the official Fatah account.